Here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the Press Row Show as we figure out something just got bumped and now we have no video. Let's do this real quick. While we await our camera to get fixed here for a second. There we go.
You want me to talk, Russell?
Yeah, go ahead and talk.
You see, this is what happens. You know, when Bill, we got Bill Meltzer here with us, right?
Okay.
Bill, thanks for joining us today. You know, just so everybody knows, what usually happens is Russ is really good about getting here nice and early. You know, him and intern Andrew get everything set up, rolling, the show rolling right off the bat. And they're ready to rock like a half hour beforehand. We just normally sit around and we're all chill, right? Well, Russ was running really late today. And he comes wandering in at about 10 after 12. And he said, "God, no worries. It'll take 2 minutes to get set up. No worries, guys. 2 minutes, we'll be all set up. Everything will be fine."
Because it was set up.
And it was set up.
The wire got jostled, and so we don't have video.
And now we don't have video.
Blame
So welcome to modern technology. But Bill, Flyers come into this game 4-2-1, which is a little bit of a little surprise start. I mean, maybe not super surprising. We kind of thought that they would get off to a decent start with this team because of coming out of a Torts camp. Usually they're a lot maybe further than most teams are as far as, you know, the conditioning.
Sure.
But I think that they're playing at another level right now than maybe even we thought that they would be at, because of these first 7 games, they've looked really good in 6.
Yeah.
You know, it's not like they're squeaking by. They've played really good hockey in 6 of these 7 games.
Yeah, with the exception of the Ottawa game. They played fast, they get in, they establish a forecheck, they create turnovers, chances in transition. And, you know, when they got off to that fast start last year, they were largely relying on Carter Hart to pull them through. The Flyers have been the better team for the majority, I would say, of 6 of the 7 games so far.
Yeah, and Carter's been really good as well.
Yeah, for sure.
So it's not, but the difference is that Carter's only had to make big saves when he's had to make them. In the proverbial standing on his head goalie, right? And winning games by himself. This year he's making the saves when he has to, but the team is contributing more to win than it's just the goalie.
No, for sure. And you know, just little areas like standing other teams up at the blue line. So it's not nearly as easy to enter the Flyers zone for other teams to get in, get their forecheck going. The Flyers have done an exceptionally good job of that so far, surprisingly good. You know, so I would say the other thing too was in the Vegas game, which is probably a game you should come away from at least 1 point from. You know, that they did make a push of the Flyers in the third period, and, you know, it got away a little bit. But if you still take the first 40 minutes of that game,
yeah,
it was good.
Yeah, and so tonight they get an Anaheim Ducks team who's, you know, probably had even lower expectations than the Flyers coming into this season. However, Anaheim comes off a big win in Boston the other night. They were down 3-1, rallied late, and win in overtime 4-3. What do you see out of this Ducks team so far that maybe could maybe be a little bit of a caution for the Flyers?
Well, for the number one thing, they're defending a little bit better.
Yes. I think you and Russ could have defended better than they defended last year.
Oh, for sure. There was nowhere to go but up. I actually looked it up, and the last season's Ducks had the highest goals against, the worst goals against for any NHL team dating back to the 95-96 San Jose Sharks.
That's incredible.
It's crazy. They were over 4 goals a game. So right there, so coming into this game, they're under 3. So right there, that's a big difference. There's a lot of young talent on that team, a lot of good young forwards. They're going to have their growing pains, you know, and they're going to have games where just nothing's working for them. But I think they're a better team than a lot of people give them credit for coming in.
I'm looking forward to watching Leo Carlson, who was a surprise pick in the file, you know, in a lot of ways, because a lot of us thought that they were going to draft Adam Fantilli with the second pick, and instead they drafted Leo Carlson, and so I'm really going to be interested to see how he looks on the ice tonight.
Yeah, and he's had a little faster success than I thought he'd have. I really thought he'd struggle early on with the smaller rink, the pace of the game, because the pace is much quicker in the NHL than it is in the Swedish League, and he hasn't looked out of place.
Well, we got to get into some lineup stuff. Russ, are you back with us now? You ready?
I think so, yeah.
You ready?
I think we're okay.
You got to stand like perfectly still? Is that what has to happen so we don't get knocked off?
I don't know.
Okay.
So let's get into lineup stuff. Harrison's in goal, second game. He looked rusty in the first game that he played. We kind of expected that. I've been a little bit surprised by the fact that he hasn't worked into, I'm not looking for 60-40, but I am surprised that he's only played once. What do you expect out of him tonight, Bill? Do you think we're going to see or this afternoon, do you think we're going to see a more consistent Harrison like we saw a season ago, or do you think we might happen to see a little bit more rust again just because he's been out of the lineup?
No, I think in the Dallas game, he struggled the first 2 periods. I thought he settled in, actually, in the third. I think he'll have a better game today than he did in Dallas.
Well, I think he's a better goalie than what we saw in Dallas,
no,
right?
No,
I mean, there's no question. And I think that rust was a big part of that. But are you a little surprised that they didn't just stick with Carter with as well as he's playing?
A little bit, yeah. You're undefeated at home. It's not a back-to-back. You know, I thought this was sometimes you kind of pencil in who the goalie will be, and I really thought it would be hard, at least this game, and then you go to Erson, one game next week. One thing to look for tonight with Erson that I noticed in the Dallas game, they kept testing him low to the glove side. One of the goals against them was scored there. Another one went off the post, and another couple produced rebounds. So no doubt they pre-scouted, saw video from that game. They're going to test them right away.
Yeah, and one of our regulars here in the feed, Ray, pointed out that Anaheim now has Alex Killorn, who always kills the Flyers.
Yes, he has.
And so that's going to be an interesting thing to see how that plays out. Bill, I'm glad you're here though, because I mean it's no secret that you've been a big supporter of Morgan Frost.
Yep.
So has Bundy, for just so we're not making it seem like anybody's dogpiling here. Like there are a lot of people out there who think Morgan Frost is a really quality player and should probably be playing. How do you look at and view him now being a healthy scratch for the 6th consecutive game?
Let me preface it by saying that I understand staying with the same lineup when you've been playing well and you've been winning, or putting yourself in position to win. My feeling that I feel deeply about, truthfully, is that he didn't. I don't think anybody should have come out of the lineup after the first 2 games.
Yeah.
Listen, Owen Tippett had the worst game of his Flyers career in Ottawa. Noah Cates had the worst game of his Flyers career in Ottawa. They're outlier games. Frost was not good in either of the first 2 games, and Tippett, the first 2 games, couldn't shoot the puck in the ocean. Yeah. He had open shots, he kept missing the net or getting blocked. Frost has, to me, done enough to earn a mulligan on it. And, question answer, right? Who led the Flyers in scoring the final 2/3 of last year? December 9th to the end of the season. It was Morgan Frost. Who led the team in preseason scoring? It was Morgan Frost. And it wasn't just, had one game where he kind of went crazy a little bit. The game in Boston, he was the 2nd star. The game here against Boston, he was the 2nd star. Final preseason game against the Islanders, he was the 1st star. So he had a good preseason. If you watch the Standard, 2nd season of the Standard, the episode of when they're making the roster decisions, Tortorella says you have to give Frosty credit. He grew a lot last year as a 2-way player, and he had a good camp. So to lead the team in scoring for 2/3 of the season, and then lead in the preseason, and having shown growth in your total game, I think sitting 6 in a row is way excessive.
I think it gets to the point where it shakes both his own personal confidence as a player. It shows very little confidence from the organization in the player, and it maybe tanks his value if you're looking to send him somewhere else.
For sure, because you can't get in your lineup, right? And it's not like it's Priest and Clark and go down the line and playing in front of them. The Flyers have a lot of kind of 2-way centers, but not offensively dynamic centers. It's great that Brink has come up and making all kinds of plays, but Frost is still one of their 2 or 3 best playmaking forwards. I think you need that in the lineup.
Yeah, I guess the interesting thing is you don't want to put him in a spot in your lineup that doesn't suit him.
Right.
But it's not like they don't have the flexibility to use Scott Lawton on the wing and then move Morgan Frost back to the middle.
For sure.
And take a winger out.
For sure. And, I mean, truthfully, I don't think that Tyson Foerster has done enough where you go, oh, he cannot come out of the lineup. I think Foerster has played like a good third or fourth line forward so far. Last game he had his second scoring chance of the season. I mean, it's not the number one thing you want from him is offense.
So do you think though maybe?
Well,
I just want to put one more thing, and then you can take it. Do you think that maybe the thought process here then, Bill, is Morgan's in his 5th year, and he's had his opportunity to show what he can do. Tyson Foerster hasn't really had that extended chance, so they want to give Tyson a little bit more of a leash to kind of show what he can do before you decide, all right, we need to take him out of the line.
And that's totally legitimate. But kind of say that, right? He was played the AHL All-Star game a year ago, and I guess he was second in the Phantoms in goals, et cetera, et cetera. Came up, had an 8-game sample size with the Flyers, had 7 points, and incidentally Frost was centering him during that time. But but he played well in his 8 games up here, no doubt. If a decision was made that he's not going to get much more out of the American League, and we want to give him every chance to succeed, then that's fine. Then say that. To me, I feel like he's playing really, really well. He's playing okay. He's playing okay. He's winning some battles. He's not dominating the walls like Eric Lindros or even that kind of thing where you need offense from him. That's the number one thing you want from him. So if that's the thought process here, that's fine. Just say it.
I think at some point it's just a law of diminishing returns with Morgan Frost and with this coaching staff and with this team. Because if you start, to Ant's point, if the idea is, hey, we're going to move Scott Lawton to center or out to wing to have Frost come back in, and you're messing with a lineup that's worked so far, there's this idea of you play the kids, play the kids. Frost is what, 24, 25?
He turned 24 in the offseason.
And Foerster's 21.
Yeah.
Foerster's a guy that clearly they believe is going to be part of the future of this team, or at least they're banking on him being part of the future of the team long term, is on an affordable contract. Whenever he comes up for a contract, will be in line with what the rebuild timeline is. They waited very long to come to terms with Morgan Frost on a deal. One could argue that perhaps the value they assigned to him was not the value that he assigned to himself. And I think that's kind of indicative of the fact that they're not going to bend over backwards to get him in the lineup. Now, I will ask you this: if Morgan Frost is busting it in practice, if part of the issue was work ethic or was just general overall fire for the game, if he shows that in practice and he's exceeding expectations to that end, then I would think that we would see him. Have you seen anything in practice out of him that makes him look like a guy who's actively busting it each and every shift to make sure that he gets himself back on the coach's radar?
I mean, I think he's taking extra skating and all those other things you look for. I think one thing that Torts believes, I don't agree with it, but I think one thing that Torts perceives is he doesn't think Frost is a great practice player, that that Morgan likes to joke around and kind of flip the puck around and, that kind of thing.
Joking and fun. Sounds like a John Tortorella kind of guy.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So, yeah, exactly. So, I do think there's sometimes a bit of perception of that, but, players have different personalities.
We need to get to this comment that just came up, though, because I don't want to smash my head through a wall, but I've seen this a lot, and I don't take it out on Abozo, who I'm sure is a wonderful person, and we respect and are grateful that Abozo's checking in on the pregame show. But the notion that you'd break up that fourth line that's doing what Torts wants them to do, that's setting whatever the example is for the fourth line, to break them up, to move Lawton to center, to then get Frost in the lineup, to me, just doesn't make sense.
Right. Well, I get that. Although I think that if I were making a lineup for like a playoff series or a must-win game, the best lineup you could put out. And the thing with Lawton and the great thing with hockey is you can change your lines during the game.
Sure.
Right? But if I was in like a must-win kind of situation, I love Lawton, on fourth line, and be able to move him up during the game. He kills penalties for you. If he's going really well that night, he could slide up. And it's nothing against a Delorier. He should still be in the lineup. But I don't think he has to be an every game player, but he's played well. I mean, honestly, I think he's played some of his best hockey since coming to Philadelphia. I'm not advocating just pull him from the lineup. I'm saying that I understand staying with the same lineup as you're playing well, but I think there are ways to get him in if you want to get him in.
Yeah.
We talked a lot about Bobby Brink prior to last game. Then he goes out and scores 2 goals against Minnesota. Really was very noticeable on the ice. Can you think of the last time, Bill, that someone came in, was like the darling of camp, and then continued it? Because usually the camp darling kind of fades out like pretty quickly once the regular season starts. Bobby Brink has not.
He has not. It's funny how fast things can change sometimes, because Brink did not have a great rookie camp. The 2 rookie series games were not his best. And he was one of those unfortunate souls who had to play that first preseason game in Jersey after he just did 2 scrimmages the day before. So he was one of the many guys who didn't have any legs for that game. But it kind of felt like the same day that Elliot Desnoyers went down, Brink was going to go down that same day. But then he went to Boston, and he had an unbelievable game. Yeah. So he got another game. And then he had another really good game against the Devils, so he got another game, and just built from there. Total credit to Brink. Nothing was handed to him. He's really earned it. And you're right. I have to think back to the last guy who came in and just was the story in camp and continued it into the season.
They just don't happen. They don't stick.
No.
It's usually there might be magic for like 5-6 games.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
And then they come back down to earth. Or you see a guy that starts to overthink and start to press. The thing I've been most impressed about with Brink is at no point does it look like he's overthinking. He's playing instinctual hockey.
Yeah, for sure.
And he's approaching every game as though he belongs here, which is like a really, really big part of it.
Oh, for sure. He has his head up at all times. He's not, just a final point on Frost. It's a point that Rocky Thompson, the assistant coach, has made about Morgan, that when Morgan is going well, he's anticipating and creating. And when he's off his game, he's reacting. So by the time he gets to where the puck is, it's already gone. You're not seeing any reacting with Brink. He is absolutely anticipating the play and making things happen because of it.
Anthony?
Well, you know what I think about Brink. I talked about him a lot last game.
Let's move to the blue line.
Yeah, let's move there.
Yep.
We had a back and forth through the preseason and early in this season about Igor Zamula being in the lineup and Emil Andre being in the lineup. And ultimately, it appears as though the coaching staff is more comfortable with the idea of Zamula being part of this roster for an extended period of time to start the season. Bill, is there anything that you saw out of Andre's play that warranted him coming out of the lineup and ultimately, losing? It looks like he might have lost a little bit of confidence, and it seems the coaching staff might have as well. In his prospects of staying up here.
All in the short term. I think that aggressive forechecks. He was taking a little bit too much time to make decisions with the puck. Remember the Ottawa game? He took just an unbelievable hit. He was crushed.
Yeah.
And he had a chance to make a play and get the hell out of there. Those kind of plays that the read and react, making that first pass. He's a dynamite passer, just to get the puck up to the forwards and break out of the zone. Those kind of things need to be his strengths. I do think that his confidence is down a little bit, and he'll be back, whether it's a quarter of a season, half of a season. You can see he's going to play in the NHL and be a good player. Zamula, who A, is no longer waiver exempt, that played a piece in it. B, he barely qualified as a rookie because it's the 30-game mark and he was just under it. So he almost is a second-year player by NHL official status. Had a great game against Vancouver. Actually, it was kind of odd that he came out of the lineup the next game against Edmonton, I thought. But since he's had some ups and downs, which should be expected.
Which is what I think that I don't think the ceiling's as high for Zamula as it is for Andre. And I think that's why they're sending Andre down to develop and not sending Zamula down. Well, they couldn't. I mean, they would have to waive him, right? But even still, I mean, I think that's why it's like, look, we think that this kid's going to be really, really good. Let's get him playing big minutes, all situations. He's not going to do that up here, and we don't feel like we're stunting Zamula by keeping him here playing the role he's playing. Whereas if we kept Andre playing the role he was playing, that would stunt his development.
Oh, totally. And I don't want Andre playing 10 minutes.
Right.
Yeah. You want him playing a lot of minutes, playing power play, because that's part of his future. With the Phantoms, will be on PP1. I think just for the development side, I think the right place for him is the AHL.
How do you take Torts' comments toward Ronnie Attard, and I guess Ginning as well, Adam Ginning, that they didn't do enough to get warranted to get called up here? Do you think that's just Torts playing his mind games, or do you think that the organization looks at it and says, yeah, we want those kids to still develop? We don't want them coming up and playing 10 to 12 minutes a night either. We want them to play more important minutes in the AHL.
Yeah, they've been kind of off to an uneven start so far with the Phantoms. I thought that was an accurate assessment, and it comes from Lappy and it comes from Alan McCauley because Torts isn't seeing the games. So I think that was from other parts of the organization, and I think it's accurate. Attard, the biggest thing with Attard is he still has to get a little better off the puck, a little more consistent. Yeah. And Yinning, I'd like to see get a little better with the puck, be a little, move the puck a little bit.
Combine the two of them, they'd be great.
They'd be fantastic. Yeah. Remember when we had Pitkin and Kukkonen? If you could have combined the two into one, Kukkonen's brain and Pitkinen's body, it would have been great. It would have been a great defenseman. Yeah.
One guy that's been really interesting that has stepped up here on the blue line is Travis Sanheim. Yeah. Looks like a much more confident player. We're not that far removed. It feels like 2 years ago was an eternity ago, or 3 years ago was an eternity ago, for a variety of reasons. Sanheim looks like the guy that I think a lot of people thought he would develop into. Now, I don't want to start signing this guy up as a potential Norris Trophy contender, right? But he looks more confident. He's playing in all situations. And he looks like a guy who just, in general, seems to have kind of refound his game and is no longer maybe gripping the stick as tight as he was a season ago when you had to, try to, live up to the expectations that come with a massive contract that he was given last year.
No, for sure. I think, too, that one of the big things is that one of the areas that he's kind of shifted, you go back to the Ottawa game, he gets stripped of the puck by Giroux. Had another giveaway. I think it was might have been the Edmonton game, but he just puts it aside and keeps going from there. And part of it is that, listen, through the games of Thursday, he was leading all NHL defensemen in ice time, so he knows he's going to be back out there pretty quickly. That does a ton for a player's confidence. Nothing builds a player's confidence more than you're going over the boards again very soon. So whatever happened the last shift, good or bad, put it aside. One of the things with Travis when he was a little bit younger was sometimes things would linger with him. Last year was a tough year for him. And I think it got in his head a little bit at times. He's turned a page mentally, and he's always had the physical ability. A guy his height who can skate like him and can move the puck like him. People go, well, what's the fascination with Sanheim? Well, it's just those two things. He's a bigger defenseman who skates as well as he does.
All right, last question, Bill.
Yeah.
Flyers are a big favorite today. First time this year that they're really a big favorite, and maybe a favorite in general. I don't know if they've been a favorite in any of the first 6 games, but is there a concern? Torts talked about it after the last game that we'll see how this team responds in certain situations. Yeah. Is this a potential to be one of those kind of trappy games for them? And do the, what's your take on it? Because you look at it, you got Carolina Monday, and then you got a home with Buffalo. You got some good teams on the horizon here, and it's an afternoon game. You know, is it a game that can kind of be a little bit of a sleepy one, and maybe Anaheim surprises you?
No, for sure. They can hang around in a game. They are improved defensively, so they could hang around in the game, and they have guys that can burn you in transition. You know, the Flyers last year beat them twice in their building and beat them here, both in regulation, both pretty handily. So, you know, things don't carry over year to year, but you go in feeling like this is a team we can beat and should beat, and sometimes you get caught up in that a little bit.
Yeah, I'm going to end up picking the Flyers today, but I do think it's going to be a much closer game than maybe the odds makers are suggesting.
Wow.
Yeah, I have like a 3-2-4.
That's what I think it's going to be like that as well.
I haven't made my prediction yet. We're going to get there.
Yeah, we'll get there.
Tweet it, I am.
Bill Meltzer, PhiladelphiaFlyers.com, NHL.com, everywhere else, Hockey Buzz. Where else? You writing anywhere else? You got anywhere else? You got?
I'm also the Flyers alumni's content.
Flyers alumni. That's right. Yeah, exactly. Make sure you check out all Bill's stuff on all those locations. And he's the professor of Flyers hockey. So you know anything Bill says is usually gospel. Thanks for joining us today. Really appreciate it.
My pleasure, guys. Good seeing you.
Yeah,
thanks,
Bill,
Bill.
as well. Bill Meltzer joining us there.
All right, so let's keep the blue line conversation going, shall we? I want to focus on Sanheim a little bit because there are people in the comments that are pointing out something that we talked about a lot, and I feel like probably needs a little bit more conversation, and that's when you are put into a situation like Sanheim has been over the last few years, where you're kind of in the shadow, in a sense, of the guy who's the declared number one, who had long been sold as the true number one in Ivan Provorov. Provorov gets moved, and I don't know if that then gives Sanheim this feeling of relief that he's going to finally get to grow into the role. But there is just something so different about the body language. And you mentioned in the interview with Jonesy a few weeks ago, he's added like 17 pounds of muscle. So not only does he appear mentally to have maybe a little bit of a cloud cleared away from over his head, but he's got 17 pounds of muscle to go with it.
I think more than coming out from under the shadow of Provorov, I think it was the word getting out that he was going to be traded to St. Louis.
Yeah.
I think that is probably what sparked him more than anything.
Do you think he was hurt by it?
I do. I do think that he's like, I just signed an 8-year contract with this team, and now they don't want me. And I think that was probably the wake-up call that he needed, more so than coming out from behind the shadow of Provorov. I don't necessarily think that was the case. You know, Travis Sanheim had a good year behind Provorov the year that they went to the playoffs, right?
Yeah.
In the bubble. Playoffs. He had a really good year that season.
Yeah.
And Provorov was on the team. So like I don't think one had anything to do with the other. I think it was more, oh my God, like they were ready to trade me away for Torrey freaking Krug.
Yeah.
Like that, what does that say? And so I think that is what refocuses Travis Sanheim more than anything else.
I think that the thing that's the relief here, and we'll take it from one Travis to another. Konechny looks like he's refound his game. There were stretches last year where you would sit back and you'd go an entire game and say, where was Konechny? And he's, in some ways, he's your vocal leader on the ice. He's certainly one of the most fiery personalities on the team. I think we've often said that this team goes as Travis Konechny goes in a lot of ways. He almost is like the personification of where the team is at.
He's their heartbeat.
He really is. And when the team is playing well and he gets the gusto, they feed off one another.
Yeah.
And when the team struggles and he's not that guy, they seem to just mentally struggle. Like they miss that element. You're right. Maybe the heartbeat is the one.
Yeah.
But to see how he's performed so far early in the season, that has to also add another layer of optimism that, hey, some of these guys that we thought were going to become part of what this eventually we hope it will become, maybe they're not lost after all.
Yeah, you might be right. And Titan Flyers asking a pretty good question. Do you think if he keeps getting better this year, will Sanheim be traded? And I don't. I think that if he can play at this level and be this consistent over the course of the year, then you're getting a good deal out of Travis Sanheim.
Yeah.
Because ultimately that contract will be good for this organization, and he's still young enough that he could be part of that rebuild. If you were getting the Travis Sanheim of last season, then I thought there would be a possibility that he could get moved still, but they would probably have to eat some money on the contract. I mean, that could be an issue. Or either that, or you have to send him to a team that can take some money and then facilitate the trade to a third team, like a three-team deal. That would be kind of complicated. I think that the better he plays, it's better for the Flyers, and it's ultimately better for him.
I'm really sorry that I was just losing a little bit. Gritty just came down from the rafters dressed as the Little Mermaid.
I know, right?
The wig and the tail. So we've now talked about Sanheim. We've talked about Konechny. Let's get to one other veteran player who I think has been impressive in his ability. And we mentioned this on the Press Row show a couple nights ago. While Sean Couturier, his impact on the game isn't as measurable, except for like when you're looking at his impact against a star player like a Connor McDavid earlier in the season. Cam Atkinson has much more tangible benefits. Like you can look at the stat line at the end of the game, and you say he made an impact because he's finding the back of the net. Do you expect him to keep up his scoring ways, and do you think we might see him find the back of the net?
He's
tonight?
always been a guy that's had a little bit of streakiness in him, not like the James Van Riemsdyk level streakiness, but he's always had some streakiness to his game. So do I think Cam Atkinson's going to put up a 40-goal season? I don't. But do I think Cam Atkinson can give you between 25 to 30? I do. I think he could be that guy, assuming he stays healthy. I think he made the biggest play of the game against Minnesota. You know, the Wild start getting back into the game in the third period. It was 3-2, and then he makes the play at the blue line to force the turnover, springs Owen Tippett on the breakaway, and Tippett scores the goal, and then the Flyers score 2 more times after that and win 6-2. But I think Atkinson makes the play, and that's a real veteran play there. And it maybe gets lost in the shuffle, the fact that he's a goal scorer, right? Yeah. And he's been scoring some goals. But that's the kind of play that you want out of a veteran player. And if he's ultimately going to be traded, Bundy, what are you doing? What are you doing?
You want to get on the mic?
Get on the mic.
All right, here we go. An unexpected treat has joined us here on the Press Row pregame show.
I just got off the Flyers one. I get to move over here to. It's good, Jason. We're just talking about Anaheim. It's a game today, guys. When looking at it, you just have to. You got to play hard. You got to play strong. Oh, let me move in. Got to check this team because against Zegras and Carlson, Anthony, and if you play a good style against them, you could get a good win here today.
Yeah, and that was one thing I was talking with Bill Meltzer earlier, and I asked him. I said, the one concern I have is. This is the first time the Flyers are favored this year, right? I don't mean to bring gambling into it, but it's just the notion of that in their minds that this is a team they should beat.
Yes.
Right? It's for the first time that's what the opponent
They're
is.
They're a 1.5 goal favorite.
Yeah, they really are. They're minus 174. It's crazy. Yeah. But when you look at a matchup like that, a Saturday afternoon game, you have 3 big games next week with Carolina and Buffalo, and then LA at the end of the week. Like, is it a possibility that this is a game where you maybe take the other team a little lightly and it becomes a lot closer game than you think?
Well, I think you just hit a really good point right there, and I think that was kind of the theme going into this game is if you do the right things and you play like you did against Minnesota, you can have success. But you could also get yourself into trouble in a game like this. Where we talked the other night, we were saying how hard it is for the Flyers to play this style of hockey. But it's a winning style, and I have absolutely no doubt if they play it again today, they will beat this Anaheim team.
Let me show you something.
What? Whoa!
I just came on to just give you guys the last bit, but thank you.
All right, hey, let's get our predictions in here because I have to tweet them out, and of course, we're keeping this. Right now, Anthony has the lead, I think, with 6 points.
And you and Bundy each have 5.
Yep, Bundy and I both have 5. So, guys, let's get the predictions in.
I'm going to hammer it out first. I'm going to go with a 4-3 Flyers.
I'm going 3-2 Flyers. I think it's a very close game.
Look at him.
Are you picking the Ducks?
He is.
You know why he's doing this? He just wants to catch me. That's all it's about.
Yeah.
He just wants to catch me in the standing.
No, I'm disappointed because I could see it going 5-3 Anaheim, but they played well at home, and the crowd is still filling in. 5-3 Flyers.
All right, there you go.
So we all took the Flyers, so obviously now, I don't know, we're going to mush it. I guess we'll see. We'll be back for first intermission, second intermission with the 3 of us. Post-game, Bundy and I. Ant will be down in the locker room. We got the post-game interview to work a couple nights ago, so we're going to do that again. We don't know who we're going to get. Obviously, we'll see how this game plays out. Make sure, do us a favor, if you're watching on YouTube, you're watching on Facebook or Twitter, whatever, send this link, preferably the YouTube one, send the link to a friend, to a family member, somebody who's a Flyers fan. It helps us out. We greatly appreciate it. We hope to see all of you for first intermission. So, guys, let's do our fun little technology rollout. Go Flyers. We all picked them to win. Here we go.
Well, that was a period.
It's just how we wrote it up. Just how we wrote. I will just say, and it's entirely possible that it's going to change and that I won't feel as bad about it. I was going to pick the Ducks 5-3.
We know
and
you
I looked
were.
at you two.
Of course you were.
I
We
looked
know
at
you
you
were.
two,
As
and you
always.
gave me these eyes, and I said, fine, and I changed my pick, and I regret it.
Okay, we said if the Flyers come out and check,
Yeah.
we think that they're going to win the game.
Yeah.
What did they not do?
And did I not ask Bundy this very question?
I think you did.
That being a favorite, playing a team that you think you should beat, and then maybe you take them a little lightly, and they come out and they smoke you a little bit in that first period. Well, what do you think happened?
They got it. Yeah, they weren't ready to play
Yeah.
because they thought this was going to be easy. And that's the one thing, Anthony, Russ, we talk about. They can't play like that.
No.
They came out, it was too loosey, as I use the word loosey-goosey, in the neutral zone.
Yeah.
Turnover right away by Sanheim. He couldn't get a handle on the puck. Came back and transitioned right away. And actually, Anaheim, to the Flyers' credit, bobbled the puck in front of the net. And what that did was it allowed a Flyer defenseman to go right by the puck carrier, thinking it was going to go somewhere else. And then it ended up being a pass in front and an easy 1-0 lead for Anaheim. Then the Flyers add to the problems. They throw the puck up over the glass, go on the power play, the Ducks do, and they make it 2-0 with just a few seconds left at the end of it. Not a good period for the Flyers. Something we haven't said a lot this year. But again, Anthony, I go back to it. I think it was a lack of coming out with their hair on fire and counting Anaheim as a team that maybe wasn't worthy of where they're at right now.
Well, we talked about this too, Bundy, in the past, or maybe on the last Press Row show on Thursday, where we said you can't play that way 82 games.
Yep.
Eventually, it's going to catch up to you. Yep. And you see what the difference is when you're not playing that way, even against a team that's bottom of the standings for the season, probably in Anaheim. You don't play at that hair on fire level.
Yep.
You're not a good team.
Yeah, and again, this is a young team that's probably in a lot of ways read a lot of their press clippings. They've heard a lot of the different pods and radio shows about how well this team is playing. And let me tell you, they can't do that. They just have to keep going out with that same attitude. It is a hard style to play, and that's where the high-end skill can get you. Like when people say, "Oh, I don't understand. You're winning with these guys. What do you need?" The high-end skill can salvage you where you are really trying to get a goal.
Yep.
They can be game breakers and difference makers. Where the Flyers don't necessarily have that type of guy. They have good players. Travis Konechny is a really good hockey player. He's a goal scorer. But a guy that can just take the puck like a Nathan McKinnon, break the game wide open, the Flyers don't have it. That's why it's important to have those skill players, but also for the Flyers to not differentiate and sway from the way that they've had success already early in this season.
It is a shame in the grand scheme of things. And, I don't want to be an alarmist here, right? But you're in a situation where you've played so well to start the year. There's this fan base, this Philadelphia fan base in general is looking for something to believe in, to glom onto now that the Phillies are out. And now that, the Sixers are the Sixers, they're doing Sixers things. And now, you sit back and you go, hey, the Flyers are playing really hard. They look really good. They're picking up wins that people didn't think they would. And then you come out and you watch this, and this is not that same team. And it's a shame in a lot of ways. Now, you always like to say it's a 60-minute game. They had a pretty crappy 20 minutes there. This can flip on its head. This team has had an ability to find the back of the net. As we look ahead to the second period, is there somebody who played well in the first period that you think, all right, he looks like he might be on the precipice. He might be about ready to break through.
No.
Yeah.
It was a bad period.
Yeah.
All right, and that marks the end of the Press Row Show, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks so much. We will be back later this week.
No, but I have a different kind of question, and when you get off to the start, we give up a goal in 58 seconds, right? I mean, that's what really would happen. Ryan Strom's goal happens in the first minute of the game. The Flyers actually had a chance at the beginning of that shift in the other end, and then came down. And Travis Sanheim, who we heaped praise on pregame, heaped praise on after the last game. Bundy just was a terrible turnover by him. And I think that can sap any life you have out of your team right away when it happens that quickly.
Yeah, and it's one of those plays, too, and I've been there, where you're playing good hockey as an individual. You don't want to play like that to blow up the rhythm. that you're on, right? So that's why everything, especially starts of games, has got to be that little extra focus to be prepared, keep it simple. That was an unfortunate play, but that's kind of the way that, I think, guys, when I look at, kind of where we're at, I think we were teetering on saying that could be a danger. We did say it was a danger game.
Yeah.
But I still like the Flyers, and I'm still going to go with it. They're going to have Torts probably, he'll have his hair on fire, I can assure you that, in the intermission.
Certainly so.
And, even though they've played well, it's just no time to really sit back and say, it's okay, guys, go out and we'll be better. No, there'll be a focus from his end and the coaches for how this team should come out and play in the second period. It's got to be a lot more energy and a lot more determination than that.
Yeah, the Flyers have that beautiful brand new locker room, right?
Yeah.
They may have to repaint it after he peels the walls after that period.
You know what, guys, I think it's probably safe to say this, and I'm sure that we'll see somebody in the comments very soon say this, but this wouldn't have happened if Morgan Frost had been in the lineup.
Oh, stop it.
Okay,
I
so
can't do that.
Stop it.
I'm kidding. I'm saying I'm surprised we're not seeing into the comments already. When you look at this, Anaheim is a team, and Bundy, you mentioned this pregame. They're a team that does not play a physical brand. They are a high skill. Their younger guys are high skill players. You can get them off rhythm. Can you talk about the physicality and the impact that finishing a check on those guys can do, and how that can impact their confidence in their play?
Yeah, to me, this is a team that just, again, if you're the Flyers, come out with more of an effort to check. I know it sounds like boring, but what happens is when you check, that's how pucks squirt loose. You turn pucks over, you go back in transition. That's hockey. Because people are always wondering, well, what's the big deal with the turnover? No, the turnover is how you create the offense and keeping pucks hemmed in the zone when you're on offense. So that has to be a part of what you're doing in terms of the play in the game. So when you check well, number one, you're wearing the other team out repeatedly. You got to have them with a head on a swivel more because they don't know what's coming at you. But also, that's the game of hockey. It's repossession of the puck as quickly as possible to take it off the other team's stick so that they can't make a play with it. And I think that ultimately, for me, when I watch a game, that's what separates good teams from bad teams. If you look at even Vegas or Colorado, one thing those two teams do as well, like I'm going back to Tampa Bay, man, they check, and their best players check. Yep. And that's how you get to play hockey in June and have parades and barbecues all summer.
Yeah, and I want to talk about the second goal, too. It was on the power play. They basically just, they just sagged back, and boy, did the box not really formulate properly. They had four guys, like the two forwards were all to one side. The defense, there was a big gap between them and the two defensemen, and Vetrano just had wide open ice. And it was almost like they just let Anaheim skate in. It was a lethargic effort all the way around. And that's usually, so far this season at least, the penalty kill's been aggressive, right? And they just lacked that aggression today, too, in that first period.
Yeah, and everything in this sport, like a lot of others, is about space and how much time and space you have to make a play. And on that Vetrano goal, the pass actually came from the outside, and the Flyers had 2D backed up in front of the net, and there was a gap between the other two forwards because the penalty was coming to an end. And that allowed a huge opening of space for Vetrano to get that shot off, and ultimately took his time to pick the corner. Quick, good shot. But those are the plays in a game like that. We're taking time and space away. Everything is about finding space. And when you give a guy has an opportunity with space, most guys in this league will make a play.
Yeah, absolutely. There was one fight in that period. Delorier, Ryan Johnston.
44 versus 44. I did tag the Elias Sports Bureau. I want an answer. Have 44 and 44 ever fought before?
Not
these two 44s. Just
is this like your own personal version of scoregami? Like what?
I just want to know.
I'm sure two guys with the same number have fought each other in the past.
No, two 44s.
Oh,
specifically,
you're acting like 44 is a number that's not used in hockey.
That's what I said. We may have had history tonight.
Okay.
If nothing else, keep your ticket stub. If you're watching the Press Row show
Russ,
in the Wells Fargo
have
Center.
any players ever fought in the league where the two numbers added up to 88?
Did Lindros ever fight anybody with a zero?
I don't know.
Are you allowed to wear zero in the NHL? I don't think you are.
No.
But anyway, I point out the fight because I kind of got a sense, Bunny, that's Delorier looking at his team and going, we got nothing today.
Yeah,
we came out sleepy. Let's try and wake this up a little bit.
It is, and you know what? I totally agree, Anthony. That was definitely, that's two fights in a row in 2 games.
It is.
The last one looked like against Maroon, like it looked like just let's get it going here tonight, guys.
Yeah.
And this one here tonight was like Delorier going, all right, There ain't nothing going on. The bench is dead. The crowd's first 1 o'clock game at home, right? We got to get something going. That's his job. That's what they pay him for, to provide the energy and a spark. And whether or not it worked, it doesn't always work. A very willing combatant and a very noble thing to do for your team. So, that's for your team.
Well, let's play this one out really quick. I don't mean to interrupt you. I'm sure you have a good point. We'll get to it in a sec. We mentioned the idea that, like, Tortorella might go in there and raise hell in the locker room. Let's play this one out. It's really the first truly awful period that we've seen this team play since
Ottawa. On the road, yeah.
Is this a moment where, with a young team, you're Torts, and instead of you going in and raising hell, you let the leaders on the team take this one for this intermission?
Possibly. Yeah, he may not say anything. Some coaches don't. I just don't think that he's able to do that.
I was just wondering.
Do you think he has the ability to control that? Like, he'd control himself to the point where his team plays so poorly that he doesn't go in and say something to them?
All right, hear me out. I don't want to say. I mean,
that's like asking. That's like saying to your 4-year-old, no, you don't. I'm going to leave all these cookies on the table 20 minutes before dinner, but I know you're not going to touch them.
Please don't eat them.
Okay. Hear me out.
Well,
hear me out. I'm not saying Torts has gone soft, but a couple nights ago, Bobby Brink scores a goal. Torts is actually, like, over the moon happy for the guy on the bench. Something that we're not used to seeing with young players, right? I guess I'm looking at it more from the perspective of, if he's looking at the young guys in the locker room, and instead of burning, chapping their keisters, we're watching the language on the Press Row show, that maybe he would just pass that off to the leaders to take this one. And if they come out like that again, then he'll raise hell in the second intermission. Well, that's I think.
So there's two ways it goes. Sometimes either he's going to come in now and wake them up, and then if they don't wake up, then you'll leave it alone, and then you'll see them tomorrow again. That's what happens.
Yeah.
He won't come in 2 periods in a row.
Right.
So he's either, and then you'll leave it alone. So he'll either come in after the first, say, guys, we need to wake up. It's not good enough.
Yeah.
And not quite as polite as that.
You got to get that answer in the postgame when you're down there in the locker room and we do the remote interview.
Yeah, I'll ask.
That's just a cheap plug for the postgame show that everybody's going to check out.
That's great.
The number 1 rated postgame show.
Hey, Andrew, can you scroll up and pop up a comment from Raymond Supper? I don't have control in this one. Thank you. He's talking about it's just a couple up if you scroll up. He's talking about the breakouts, D-zone breakouts. Raymond Supper. Got it up there? There you go. Flyers need the D to start making better breakout passes. Bundy, as a guy who looks at the D really closely, like what are you seeing from these guys, and is Raymond's assessment accurate?
Just take a little bit of panic out of the game, and you make good plays. The thing is, when you don't make a good first pass out of the zone or it doesn't come out clean, there's a lot of transition that develops through that because it becomes messy and sloppy. So the first pass, I always said, people say, young in my career say the first pass is the most important. It is, because when the first guy gets a pass, there's like a rhythm to it. If one guy gets a bad pass, then he's likely to make a bad pass because he's had to try to regroup it in a matter of a second. Yeah. That's why it's so important for defensemen to continue to have their head up, their feet moving, to make a play. And if there's no play, don't force it. I saw somebody saying I never had a bad game. No, I talk about it like you can't play D and not have rough moments. We all do. It's a hard position, and it's tasking because you're demanded to do a lot. And nobody except a goaltender can look worse in an NHL game than a defensive defenseman or defenseman when you're having a rough night. And I've had plenty of them. I'm never hesitant to say it. They just need to simplify it. Yeah. The problem with defense, though, is when you get into a little bit of a rut early, it's getting out of it quicker. Instead of letting it hamper down like, oh, man, I had a turnover. What I need to do here in the D zone. Don't think. Just play. React to what goes on out there. Thinking is no good. Yeah. It really isn't in sports.
I don't like thinking either. Hey,
we know.
So some cheap plugs here really quick. Along the bottom of the screen, you'll see shop.snowthegoalie.com, where you can go to support this show. Of course, we do the Press Row Show live every Flyers home game up here in the unnamed sportsbook. All the way up. You can take the VIP elevator up. Just tell them you're going up to the sportsbook and you can come find us. We've had people find us already. We had Greg from Vineland who wore the Bundy Butte shirt on the first night. He went by here, showed us his phone that he was listening to the Press Row Show while traipsing around. So if you're in the building and you want to come find us, by all means do. And again, shop.snowthegoalie.com. We have 3 minutes until the guys come back out. Let's kind of level set here for the second period. what do you expect to see from this team in those first 5 minutes, which are obviously going to be critical to setting the tone?
Well, for me, and I'll let Anthony finish up the other side, the Flyers, to me, are looking for a chip and chase right now. And what that does, it gets your legs going, it gets energy for the team on a forecheck, and then repossession will be the goal here. I'll tell you one thing John Tortorella doesn't want to see is like cute plays in the neutral zone. This is let's get the red line, let's get the puck in deep, and let's go after it, and let's make life difficult on their defense. That's what I would tell my team. That's a simple plan.
Yeah, and I agree with you. I thought that the forecheck was lacking in that period. Even though they did get 11 shots, I really kind of felt like it was not what we had seen in the previous 7 games, in all honesty. And so, like, I think that you're not going to tie the game with one shot, right? You're down 2 goals. So it's just a matter of there's still 40 minutes. Go out there, start playing the game the way we play it, and those opportunities to score will arise. If you score on it, great. If you don't, well, we'll get them on the next one, right? I mean, but keep pressing, keep going, and you don't feel like you need to get everything back at once. There's still plenty of time. The goal should be, let's get 1 this period, and then get the next one in next period. If you get 2, great, bonus. But the goal should be, let's get at least 1 of these back.
And don't try to get it all back in 2 shifts.
Yes.
Because that's when you get yourself in more trouble.
Correct.
Go play the correct way. The correct way they were playing was before the first period tonight.
Big thank you. We will be back
See you in a bit.
The second intermission. All right, talk to everybody very soon. Technology. All right, so maybe how we drew it up. I don't know.
Exactly how it was drawn up, Russ. Let's wake up after we're down 4-0.
Yeah, so welcome into the Press Row Show. It's great to see everybody out there in internet land. If you're joining us on YouTube, Facebook, or Twitter, Flyers, we said that the game could open up in the second period. I think I said that there were going to be a lot more goals.
And there was.
And it ends 4-2 after 2. What did you guys see in that period? Is there anything?
A very angry John Tortorella.
Yes, there was
That's
that.
what I saw.
The third goal is the one that they had to go to the super long review. That was like, what, a 5-6 minute review? I don't remember ever being in person for a goal that took that long to review.
There had to be a better angle that they did not show here in the arena. Because every angle that we saw on that goal, and it was probably a goal, but it was one of those ones where it's like you assume it went in, but there was no actual video evidence that it did, and they still gave it a goal. So they must have an angle that kind of showed it, but anything that they showed here in the press box or on TV, there was nothing that said, oh, yeah, that's in.
Yeah.
Definitively.
Yeah.
So I don't know. They must have a better angle. And then the fourth goal was just awful.
Did they call the third goal a goal on the ice? I think they did. And that's what led it to.
Here's why I suspected it, and I hate bringing back old memories. The Patrick Kane goal in 2010.
Yeah.
I knew right away because the goal scorer always knows, or the guy right around the net. Like they know the puck went in. It's different for the fans. So this one here, immediately there was two guys that went right to the goal scorer and said, that's a goal.
Yep.
And they looked pretty certain of it. I just didn't see any of the necessary proof, and we didn't get any on video here to say that this was a good goal. But again, I'm going with Anthony, unless Toronto had another replay that we just didn't see here.
Apparently on the fans are saying that they originally called it no goal on the ice.
That's what makes it even more surprising, because when you
But the players did. I don't care what the ref said. I'm saying what the players.
No, but I'm saying so they had to, in order to overturn it, there had to be clear visual evidence.
Clear evidence. That's the thing about it. Now, am I the only one who gets pissed off every time? It's not just the NHL. It's in sports in general, where you hear on the telecast they say, well, you know, the review rooms have access to angles that we don't. Why? Like, seriously, what is the reason?
You know what, though? I don't know how true that is, Russ. I mean, it might be. But I think that's a good thing to say on network TV, because it makes it sound like, we weren't able to get the replay in time. Our video people weren't able to get the replay done in time. So, they have angles that we don't have.
Yeah, maybe.
Or is it they have angles that we couldn't get up on the screen in time for you to see?
I guess it's possible.
Because how many times have you seen the angle after the call has been overturned?
Yeah, I mean, the thing that bothers me is, if you go with that definition of clear and decisive or whatever it is, right? There was nothing clear that we saw. There's the general idea of, okay, based on the velocity of the puck and where we saw it, where we lost the visual from top down, like, okay, yeah, maybe it went in. But to not have any kind of visual, and then, assuming that was right in the comments, that it was initially ruled no goal, and then it went to review, and then they overturned no goal, it's honestly shocking.
You know what bothers me in hockey with this? And Bundy, maybe you can attest to this too. So the games, when they're on the national broadcast, they have the camera inside the goal, right? So that you can see those goals from inside. The local broadcast, they don't use those nets with that camera in there. Why?
Yeah, I don't understand it. It's so easy to do it with
Why
technology.
not?
Yeah.
Like, that would make it easier, and we could sit there and go, oh, yeah, there it is. There's the puck over the line. Like I said, it must be. I mean, they're not going to just gift Anaheim a goal, right? So there must be an angle that shows, but why don't we see it? Why don't we get it?
Can I just make a pitch here? We could talk about this another day. The technology exists. You could, and I'm not saying it's a great idea, but especially, and I'm thinking more for playoff games when it really does matter, you could embed a chip in the direct center of the puck, and you can have sensors in the goalposts, where even without the visual, you would have essentially like the LiDAR, like the breaking of the laser, of the infrared signal or whatever. That technology does exist. I'm not saying that we need it for regular season games, and I'm sure that somehow the players would be convinced that breaking the puck down the middle is going to cause weird caroms or something, and players are creatures of habit. But, like, that to me is the simplest fix, especially for games that matter. This doesn't. But if that goal were called in the postseason, or if that goal were called in a Stanley Cup final, the Flyers fan base would be irate.
Speaking of being irate, Russ, I'm completely irate right now.
Why?
Because I know you want to talk about a couple things. We had some great fans come up and visit us between periods.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you why I'm irate right now. While you were just in the middle of that rant,
yeah,
intern Andrew's over here slapping 5 with 2 guys wearing Ducks jerseys. Like, what the hell are you doing, intern Andrew? You can't be slapping 5 with Ducks fans.
What was your excuse? You're your friends from Penn State.
Why are Penn State students wearing...
Why are you Ducks fans? Wait a
I know.
second.
The Knits are playing right now, and they're only winning by 4 against stinking Indiana.
Like, is there any fan for Anaheim outside of the actual perimeters of the
Is he from out there?
So they're from Riverside.
Oh, okay. All right.
That's fine. That's fine.
All right. Fair enough. Fair enough.
Hey, let's give a shout. It was Joe Papel.
Yes.
Right? So everybody knows we're up in the sports book. You go to section 121. 121 is where the elevator is that brings you all the way up here. You tell them you're going to the sports book, and they let you up. Don't try to like take the stairs. We had a bunch of people who showed up here during intermission. Some went to the press box,
they went
taking the stairs.
Yeah.
Others tried to take an escalator. It was a whole thing. So you go to 121, and you take the elevator all the way up. Joe Papel and his wife were up here, and why don't you tell? Because it was a really nice story. They had season tickets. They got rid of them.
So he was a longtime season ticket holder. He's lives half the year in Florida, half the year here. And they gave up their season tickets about 5 years ago. They just finally got fed up with the way things were going. And Joe tells us, Bundy says, I listened to you guys on Snow the Goalie, and you guys got me excited for Flyers hockey again. And he said, I saw that they had 2 seats, season tickets available, row 2, section 107, right behind the goal. And I thought, these guys got me so fired up to be a Flyers fan again. I'm going to buy those season tickets. And him and his wife bought the season tickets, and he says, I go home after every home game, and I sit on my computer. I watch the pregame show, fast forward through the stream through the GameCast, and then first intermission, second intermission, and then postgame. And he sits there and watches what we had to say about it.
Yeah, it's really, really cool. And especially, listen, I mean, I would say anyone's responsible for someone getting tickets, but if someone found a little passion out of it, that's great. And what this building needs is those people to come back, too, because there's been a lot of great Flyer fans over the year that probably abandoned some tickets in the last few years. And to have someone come and tell us, you know what, I'm passionate about this team. I love coming back. Love listening to you guys. Pretty cool stuff.
It is really cool. By the way, he'll never pull it up, but Christopher says, intern Andrew needs to sit in a corner and think about what he's done.
He's networking the show.
That's right. That's right.
He's going to get us fans out in Riverside, California, I guess, right?
So,
eventually, one day.
All right, let's kind of break this one down a little bit. The game did open up quite a bit there in the second.
It was ugly.
Cam Atkinson.
Both ways, it was ugly.
Atkinson finds the back of the net again, continuing to be resourceful, continuing to put the biscuit in the basket. I assume that we think the third period is also going to be open and potentially ugly, right? Or are we going to now see Anaheim go into a shell and just try to hold off a desperate Flyers team in the third, Bundy?
Well, there's a couple of things to this. Anaheim actually had a good start. They got 4-0 lead, and they played the game like we said the Flyers should play the game. They were checking defensively, keeping pucks loose, or getting pucks out of the zone. They were playing pretty intent on checking, and the Flyers fell into that a little bit, especially early in the game. They gave up 2 more in the second, and then the Flyers responded with 2 good goals, really good goals. But what happened with Anaheim is they did what the Flyers were doing earlier. Anaheim is not a good enough team that they can go out and take a 4-0 lead and just cruise home with it. Now, 4 would seem insurmountable. It's not. And now with the 2-goal deficit busted late in the period by the Flyers to get off the schneid, get on the score sheet, it makes it for an interesting third period.
Yeah, I don't think the Ducks can play,
right.
Sit back and hope to hold on to the lead, because the Flyers have shown that they're not going to just wilt in this game. Down 4-0, they come back quick, score a couple of goals, and they're right back in it again. So I think that's a thing that, I think Anaheim would be wise to make sure that they keep doing what they were doing up until the last 7-8 minutes of the game. But the Flyers have to then come out and play the way that they played in the last 8 minutes of that second period. Because that was really when it was like, oh, okay, now we decided to show up. It's almost, it's like 2:30 in the afternoon. They got here 90 minutes late.
Yeah, and actually, the Flyers they had a power play afforded to them after the 2 goals, and it was an awful power play. I don't even think they had a setup for more than a few seconds. They're going to get chances here, and this is going to be an important start to this period for the Flyers. They have to almost repeat the game, like start it over again, and start playing a simpler style. Get in on the pucks. They still didn't do that. They had transition goals and plays in front, but they need to make it hard on Anaheim, and they need to really get after this Anaheim defense.
You got to pull up Cliff Watt.
No, that's what I was doing right now. So Cliff checks in, and this is a really cool thing. Cliff says it's my 58th birthday. What
Happy
are you
birthday.
doing? Intern intro. Cliff says it's my 58th birthday. I'm at a winery in Winona, Ontario, Hamilton, and I'm tuning in with my Flyers pal Pete Walker. He says the Flyers will score the tying goal. Book it. I just want to say, and a lot of people said it in the comments, by the way, happy birthday, Cliff. Thanks for checking in. But how about that, guys? He's out at a winery and checking in.
At a winery in Ontario.
But Mike,
no less.
this is what I just thought, guys. Might Pete Walker be Sean Walker's father?
Oh, well, he says my Flyers pal.
Yeah, but I mean,
Sean
who would
Walker's-
else
is
book
Sean-
it that Sean Walker scores the goal?
Is Sean Walker's dad named Pete?
I don't know.
I don't know.
All
Idea.
right, we're gonna have to check in
So,
on
Cliff,
that one.
is there a relation between your buddy Pete Walker
'Cause
and Sean Walker?
I would like to think my dad would say that too.
Yeah, your dad may have said that many times and would have been wrong about
Never
95% of the time.
95. Keep going, pal.
I want to know where Peter's checking in from. Peter says got up at 4 a.m. to watch Philly versus Vegas. So
He's
watching,
in Norway.
Oh, that's okay.
Yeah, he's the
that was
guy in
from
Norway.
Okay.
Yeah.
Watching this game at 7 p.m. is a blessing. I think that's pretty good stuff. Good stuff out there. In that period, you know what? Let's leave that period behind.
Look at you, Mr. Positivity.
Listen, we all picked the Flyers to win. All right, so we're gonna try to figure out a game plan here to get them back in. Now, Bundy, if I remember, you were 4-3.
4-3 Flyers.
And you were 4-2.
3-2.
You were 3-2, and
So I've already been blown out of the water
and I was
score-wise.
5-3, so I can't. None of us can get the exact score. How do the Flyers get back into this, and how do they potentially get over the top? What do they need to do in the first? Let's go back to what we did in the last intermission. What do they need to do in the first 5 minutes? Bundy, is it imperative that the Flyers find the back of the net in those first 5 minutes?
Well, I mean, so what guys will say in the locker room is, let's score a goal. You're down 2. 1 goal every 10 minutes. That's what the adage would be, but you got to keep the goals out of your own net. That's what guys would always say. The Flyers still need to get a cycle going and a forecheck in the Anaheim zone. They have not done a good enough job in this game of that. They've not done a good enough job making life hard on the Anaheim defense, and I still think this game can be won for the Flyers, but they're going to have to do that. They're going to have to play ugly.
I just want to see them play the way they played the end of the second period. That's it. You go out there and play that way to start the look, if you give that effort in the third period here, and let's say you don't come back and you don't win the game, the one thing you could say is we played a terrible first 30 minutes of this hockey game, and somehow we got back into it because we played a really good 30 minutes of this hockey game. And I think that goes a long way when you're trying to understand the culture of this team and where they're at in their togetherness, that if they they've gotten themselves back in the game, and if they can stay in the game for the entirety of the third period, even if you don't get a point out of it, even if you lose the game, you're not happy with the first 30 minutes, but there's something to be taken out of the last 30 minutes.
Hey, let's go into one player here that people are starting to voice some concern over. Sam Ersson. Now, he has not. It's not. I think I'd be more concerned if he had played 2 of the last 3 or 2 of the last 4 or whatever, and it had been farther into the season. He hasn't had a lot of playing time. Is this a matter of rust? Is this a matter of him not playing a lot? Does he look fundamentally out of position to you? Like, why does it seem like there is a struggle so far on the Ersson front?
I don't know, Bundy. Look, he's given up, 9 goals in 2 games that he's played. I don't necessarily think that a lot of these goals are on him. I mean, would you like your goalie when somebody makes a mistake in front of him to be your best defenseman and make that save, and he's not done it? Okay, fine. but you can't put your goalie in that kind of position either. I mean, the mistakes that have been made in front of him and the chances that the Ducks have been very high percentage. And so in that regard, yeah, it would be great if the goalie made a save, sure, but I mean, how much do you really put on him and say, oh, that's a bad goal? I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, and it's a tough game for him because he's expected to win. The team's playing well, and it's hard being a backup goalie when you're not at the forefront all the time, and you're expected to come in and play and do a good job in relief of the main starting goaltender. He's been okay. There's probably 2 goals of the 4 just off my head that the Flyers kind of gave them. I mean, certainly the last one by Adam Henrique with the open net, nobody covering him. That's one. But there's chances. The Flyers have just been playing a little bit too loose, and they really do need to tighten up the checking, especially between the hash marks up and down the ice.
But it's what you were saying in the second intermission. It's that sometimes, there's nobody who looks worse on the ice than a defenseman other than maybe the goalie.
Yes.
Right? If the team's not playing great in front of him. And so you can make a goalie look a lot worse than he is if you're not playing well in front of him.
There's no doubt about that, and I think that's the challenge here for the team. Ursun's going to have to be solid. I don't know yet. Like, Anaheim's a young team. They have a couple veterans, but this is a team to me that's not going to be able to take possession of the puck for an entire third period and keep the Flyers at bay. There's an open window here. Flyers just down 2 goals. Huge difference between down 2 and 3. But I really do believe if they play the game the right way, they can score 2 goals, tie it up, and try to get it to overtime.
There's co-host Nancy checking in again saying the neutral zone hockey needs to go away.
So,
Thank you, Nancy.
I'm just not going to acknowledge.
You're not going to acknowledge your wife?
No, I
Okay.
acknowledge her all the time. She's wonderful. Let's get a prediction in here real quick.
Another prediction?
Yeah.
We've been so good with them so far today.
Are we, the next time we reconvene, is it going to be Flyers Ducks post game, or is it going to be Flyers Ducks intermission, overtime intermission?
We really allowed to do that? There's like a minute and a half in between the intermission
Buddy,
and overtime.
if it goes to OT, we're hopping on here for a minute.
For a minute.
Yeah.
It's not going overtime.
You got it, Russ.
Do you think overtime, or is it going to be over?
That's a tough pull. I'm going to go. I'm going to ride the Flyers wave. I'm going to say they tie this baby up.
So we got
Why not?
a positive Paulie, a pessimistic Pete over here. All right, we will be back for whatever comes next. Okay.
Nancy is everybody's favorite person.
I know. She's awesome. She's awesome. All right, we'll be back for whatever comes next at the end of the second period. If it is post-game, it'll be me and Bundy. Ant will go find a player. Everybody have a great third period out there, and let's see if the Flyers come back. Well, just like we all wrote it up, the Flyers, they lost tonight. You know, I don't want to say that I spent how many years as a teacher saying peer pressure is bad, don't give in to peer pressure, and I was going to pick the Ducks, and then I believed you, and I believed Ant, and I changed my opinion, and I will tell you it will never happen again. Until next time. Welcome into the Press Row Show. Post-game, Flyers fall 7-4. Welcome to your therapy session. By all means, if you're out there and you're frustrated with the result of this day game, as a lot of people are, as they leave the Wells Fargo Center, as they leave Assembly Row, as they leave the sports book, if you are frustrated, let us know in the comments below over on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter. Bundy, the game got away from this team early on. They clawed back a few. Second period, they clawed back a few. The game opened up. And then in the third, things just got kind of weird. Was this just a case where you had two bad hockey teams playing an open game and weird things happen?
I think so. I mean, I don't want to say they're not a bad team. I mean, Anaheim's trying to turn the corner like the Flyers a little bit, but they're two teams in the same predicament. Anaheim just having to picked a little bit higher in the draft, but it's just this is a game for me where I just don't like the way the Flyers started.
Yeah.
I don't like the way they even responded. I mean, they did once. They got 2 goals, and as I said at the end of the second period, I thought if they ended up kind of checking and putting a little bit of energy into the beginning, I really thought that they certainly could have been there to tie the game. And they did score 2 more goals. Problem is that they just had no way to answer for Anaheim. And, that's not a team you should have to worry about answering for. Like, it's, if you play the game the right way, and the Flyers had played the game the right way, they would have had an opportunity to get a point at least in a game like this. Because Anaheim comes off feeling good. They beat Boston the other night. So they have a little bit of feeling good sentiment with their whole hockey team. But for me, I just didn't like what the Flyers did. This was about the Flyers today, and they just didn't respond. And it's going to – listen, I'm not sitting here bashing them. It's going to happen. I mean, every good team, any team – I mean, listen, and they are a rebuild. We need to remember who they are. At the same time, like they were playing like a juggernaut the other night, beat Minnesota. They've had a great stretch at home. They played awesome in Vegas. But this is a frustrating loss, as we're seeing right there, because I think people thought they were going one way, and I don't want people to be negative and think that this is going to totally derail everything, because I don't believe it will. But it's certainly eye-opening in a sense, because the Flyers got away from the things that they did well that gave them early season success.
It's a game that kind of snaps you back to reality a little bit. Right? Like,
yeah.
And again, we don't want to skew heavily negative here, nor do we want to be all rainbows and smiles and act like, this is an aberration and this is just going to be something that's a one-off and that they're going to get back to, winning, I don't know, like getting 6 out of their next 8 points kind of thing consistently, right? But when you look at what the team is and you think back to what the entire mission of the season is, it's a rebuild. There are going to be bad performances. I think the thing that's frustrating, if you're a Flyers fan out there, and let us know in the comments below, is Anaheim's not a good team. Like, they're not one of the elite teams. I think if you get your doors blown off by, like, an Edmonton who has the top-end talent, or you get your doors blown off by a team that, like a Tampa, then you say, all right, like, clearly the disparity in talent, or like a Colorado, the talent disparity is so big, of course you're going to have a rough game.
Yeah,
but for it to happen against Anaheim, like, I don't know, that's a little bit tough to swallow.
But it happens, Russ. I mean, look at Colorado against Pittsburgh. It was last night or the night before. I mean, they lost 4-0. How's Pittsburgh going to shut out Colorado? And they did. So I just say, like, you look around at the league and things happen, and there's going to be nights that are just not your night, no matter how prepared you are to go out and play good. I just think the Flyers should never, ever, this team should never underestimate anybody.
Yeah.
They're not the team to do that. And to be honest with you, in the game, I thought Anaheim was kind of the same. Like, they weren't anybody to sit on a lead. They added to what they had. But, again, they're a lot like the Flyers and redeveloping, trying to grow some players with some mixed-in veterans. Not a good team, but they were good enough today.
I think the weird thing now, as you kind of look at where the team has been and the kind of results that they've been able to put together, this one is just a disappointment. I think it's just from start to finish, the way that they fell behind early like they did, and it almost felt like anytime they clawed back a goal or two, they just any kind of momentum they felt like they were building, even in the building, they just gave it right back.
They had nothing, right?
Yeah.
And they got the goal back, and that just tells you that we got a couple goals then, but there was no push after that. Didn't feel like there was the energy that was pulling them into that third goal. As a matter of fact, they gave everything back to Anaheim. I see somebody commenting on Farabee has 5 points in the last 5 games. That's great for the player, but I didn't really notice him until the end of the game tonight. Like, he scored that shot wide. I mean, that's great. You're going to pad your stats, but meat and potatoes of the game, we didn't see a whole lot of that today. And I thought Bobby Brink did not follow up from his game the other night the way that we'd seen him play. He had an off night tonight, too.
Yeah, which is frustrating, too, because
it's going to happen.
You know, it feels like all the guys that we were giving kudos to pregame ended up not having great games tonight. And the guys that we've been kind of like pumping the tires for, you know, they've didn't have great showings tonight. We're going to go to Ant in a bit. He's down in the locker room. After last game, we had Bobby Brink for an interview. Typically, just to give people an idea, pull the curtain back a little bit on how things work down in the media area. Typically, after a win, players are available. After a close loss, usually players are available for one-on-ones. I think today, it's the afternoon. I think today we're going to get a locker room report from Ant where he's going to go in the scrum and do the scrum stuff and then give us a general feeling of what the locker room is like after
No player likes to do interviews after games, and that's kind of the way it's always been. So if anybody knew of me doing TV and radio, if the Flyers lost, we don't get an interview unless it's a terrific game and something at the end. Yeah. Anytime a loss happens, it's really you don't get as much media availability for both the broadcasts, like the broadcast streams.
Yeah, so we will get to him in a bit. We've got this. We can't have our tasty cakes and eat them too, although someone put a tether on Ersson. So let's talk about him.
Yeah.
7 goals.
He was not good today.
Yeah. How many of these goals would you say? You don't actually quantify that with like a specific number, but how much of this falls on him and how much falls on the team in front of him? Because there were some somewhat boneheaded plays that led to multiple goals. Sure, there are some that you probably want to have your goalie still stop, but like, would you say it was like close to 50-50? I know it's an odd number, but like, was it close to half were on him? Would you say more of them fell on him than on the team? Was it just a bad performance overall, and you can't really say it was just Ersson? Like
turnovers, nothing good comes from turnovers, and the Flyers had way too many in the middle of the ice from good players, Sanheim, Konechny. And when anything comes back in transition, I'm always willing to lay off the goalie. Now, should he have stopped them? A couple? Probably. Yeah. He hasn't played since last week, and he was it the Dallas game last Friday night, I think.
Was it Saturday?
Friday or anyway. So he hasn't.
Was.
Yeah, so now this is only his second game. So listen, I don't want to just throw everything at the kid because
and he didn't play a lot in preseason.
He
either.
did not.
They gave Hart a lot of look. I don't think he's been put in an advantageous position.
Neither goaltender on either team today was very good.
Yeah.
There was backups going, and I think that when you look at this game in a nutshell, the Flyers had a bad start. They were not able to recover. And I'm still trying to figure out why you're laughing right now.
There's a funny comment because remember we like to go to the comments as much as we can.
We love interaction.
We're the most interactive postgame show. Also, the #1 rated postgame show here at Wells Fargo Center for Flyers games. I don't know if you knew that or not.
What's that?
The #1 rated postgame show.
Oh,
the Press Row Show.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, people are saying it.
Yeah,
they're just saying.
Come listen to us.
Yeah.
Turn off everyone else. Come listen to us.
Brian, I'm pretty sure Brian is being sarcastic here. I think.
Yeah.
I think.
I hope he didn't do
Brian,
that.
if you're not, we might encourage you to get a little bit of anger management help there. But I think this is sarcastic. Brian says, I just smashed my TV in front of 30 guests at my party because of the game. This team has ruined my life and my party. Can't handle this anymore. Goodbye, Philadelphia Flyers. I'm no longer.
Did he watch the Phillies?
Oh. Yeah. By the way, if your TV survived that,
yeah, right. Then I know you're lying to me right now. If you're that
exactly
impassioned.
Right. Nah. So Brian, I think is joking.
I sure hope so.
I would certainly hope. Now, this is an interesting point by Rob, and he's not the first person to bring this up. About sending Ersson down to get some playing time helps the rebuild. They've been carrying 3 goalies since the start of the season, which is just a weird thing to do, right? Now, we can say this. There were murmurs in the offseason and last trade deadline that teams had reached out to the Flyers about a potential move for a Carter Hart. And so we have hypothesized for quite some time, is it possible that they're carrying 3 goalies because they could eventually look to move Carter Hart and hand the reins off to Ersson? Even if that's not the case, carrying 3 goalies is weird. They seem to be worried that if they would put Sandstrom on waivers that they would lose him. They could send Ersson down. At this point, given how little time he's had, to play and how sparse it's been, do you think that they could send him down to give him more reps, to give him more time, or is this just the life of a backup goalie in the NHL and he needs to learn how to handle it?
You can't swing a cat around by its tail and not hit a goalie in this Flyers organization right now.
That's true.
There's enough of them.
Yeah.
No, it's not an animal cruelty thing. That's not.
An important note that the fine folks at Snow the Goalie do not support swinging cats by their tail.
We do not. But I'm just saying is that my point is that there's not a lot of room. You walk in a locker room without another goaltender being around, and that's the case. They sign a lot of them. I don't know if there's a forecasting move on management's part in terms of what they have, what they're hoping turns out.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess whatever the top limit of goalie tenders you're allowed to have is probably not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because then you get a feel for what you have out there. I'm not sure about sending the guy down to the minors because I think when you're there, like when you bring a backup goalie wants to feel like he's as much part of the team too. Then we got to go get reps in the minors.
Yeah.
So in his mind, he's an NHL goalie that's just a backup and earn that spot. That's tough. I'd like to talk to the Flyers goalie coach about that or management about sentiment about how. You ever get a guy who's not your ultimate number one just go down to the minors? I don't know. It'd have to be on emergency, I would think.
Yeah.
And maybe not. I'm not sure Urson's contract status or how they sign him, whatever age. So if someone knows that, feel free to share it.
I like what Vineet put here. Being upset and frustrated should only be when expectations far exceed outcomes. It's a rebuild. Dud games should be part of the expectation. I think that's probably fair.
Well,
How can you get upset? Just in theory, it's a rebuilding team. Like, how do you get that upset about a loss in a rebuild?
Yeah, well, and again, like we were told coming in, so we've been treated to some good hockey, to some good wins, to some great efforts.
Yeah,
and I think that we all have to remember that this is kind of the way it's going to go sometimes. And I mean, I think it's disappointing. I think it's a little bit more infused because. Of Anaheim, right? They're just not a good team. They were awful last year. They're limited in their talent. They have some good young players, Leo Carlson and Zegras and Troy Terry. They're offensive threats. Vetrano obviously tonight had himself a night. But they're a patchwork team in a lot of ways, and I think they're trying to find their way too is in a rebuild of getting guys together and trying to find that symmetry as well. So you got to be ready. I mean, the Flyers have to be ready. On a nightly basis to compete hard. And they cannot take a night off.
All right, so this game clearly didn't go the way that they wanted it to. We look ahead because there are a lot of games coming up, including multiple home games. We're in the midst of a pretty impressive stretch here of games. They played Thursday. They played today. They're playing Monday again, and then they're back at it on Wednesday as well. They have the Hurricanes on Monday. And they've got the Sabres on Wednesday. Do you expect, is there a chance here that Tortorella gives Ersson another game?
No.
Again, with the idea of getting in the swing, or
no.
You think they're going back to Hartford?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah. That's what I'm thinking. If I'm Torts, I'm like, well, listen, I played the guy in a game that you play a backup in.
Yeah.
Play him against a team that picked second last year, is coming around, and you're in the middle of a busy schedule.
Yeah.
Early in the year, games every other night. This was a good spot to put the backup goaltender. Do I see him playing against a very good Carolina team and an up-and-coming Buffalo team? No, I don't think so. I mean, maybe they're wrong. Maybe something happens. There's fatigue's involved, but I would play Hart both those games.
There are some concerns, I think, when you look at this game. We talked about how last game, Sanheim looked fantastic, looked confident, looked like a guy who had kind of regained his confidence and his form. There were some not excellent plays out there.
Defense, it's rare to get a defenseman just play repeatedly good every night.
Yeah.
Because there's just too much coming at you. Too many pucks get turned over. You're asked to do a lot, and I'm telling you, I've been there. You have nights where you just get exposed, and there's nothing you can do about it. It's not. There's no precision involved. There was a bad turnover to start the game. You kind of chased it a little bit after that, and that's what happens. You chase. You end up. This is a team too, and I should say this. They are not suited to come back in hockey games. Yeah. This is a team that is going to be much better suited with a lead. It sounds like it's stating the obvious. It's not. This is a team that has to have a lead. They're not a team like Vegas or someone else that's in the past fall behind a goal, and they could just rally back with their skill. They can't. They're much, much better suited having leads at any time. But that's not going to happen, Russ.
No, and you know what? I think There was a comment down here that I think also is probably fair too. This one's by Peter, who I believe was in Norway, if I remember correctly. Sucking now doesn't hurt as much now as it did the last couple of seasons. A lot more losing ahead of us, but there's a light at the end of the tunnel. So I think this again comes back to that expectations versus outcomes, right? When you know that the bar has been set really low in terms of what to expect this season, you're pleasantly surprised when they go toe-to-toe with better teams.
Yes.
And when you have a game like this, I think the only people who are really genuinely probably bummed about this result are the ones who paid to come to the game today, especially if you're somebody who just bought tickets based on how they've played so far to this point in the season.
Yeah.
Because this isn't indicative of what we've seen to this point.
Not really, not at all. I mean, this is really. I mean, after the Ottawa game was game number 2. I mean, they had a rough game against Ottawa on the road, and that was Ottawa's home opener. It happens. Tonight was kind of, I guess, the first kind of like stink ball we've seen here in Philly, and it won't be the last. But again, they put a template out of how to play well, how to compete here in this building, and get the fans behind them. Yep. Afternoon games too. That's another one too. Every team is different from year to year with afternoon games. Some teams play great. Other teams, they're not as great. And that, believe me, it's a factor. Anaheim sure looked at today. Flyers may evaluate what they need to do in preparation for afternoon games.
How hard is it? I want to go back to Sanheim for a second. So after playing as well as he did, and today not great, other than just the old adage of you try to let it go past and you just try to shake it off, what do you do to try to get back the confidence? Is it really just as simple as saying, all right, I suck today, or I just didn't do my best today, and I'm going to put the right foot forward?
I think it's always having an understanding who you are as a player, and then knowing what you're good at, and getting back to keeping things simple. Mistakes happen; it's part of the game. This game is a reactionary game to mistakes in every facet, in every zone. So I mean, listen, if I'm Sanheim, go out and do what he does well: skate, move the puck, get up the ice, do a good job in the corners, get the puck out. That's it.
Yeah.
And just do that every night. And you're going to make mistakes. Some nice pucks are going to bounce off your stick. They're going to hit you. They're going to go on someone else's, and bad things are going to happen. That's part of the game.
There's one guy that we haven't really talked about that we were kind of talking about, and you and Ant especially were talking about during the period. Cam York. I don't know what to think about Cam York. He doesn't jump off the page statistically. He doesn't jump off the ice from this vantage point where a lot of guys who are making strides do. He's just kind of there. I'm not saying he's bad. I'm not saying, obviously, that he's great. Is it concerning that he isn't popping at all? That he's largely not noticeable?
It's funny. Anthony's made a good point, too. He said, he's a Southern California kid. They're kind of laid back. He does need to, and again, he's young. I remember going back there. You're going to make mistakes, and you're going to learn from it. But he does need, I think, to take a little bit bigger bite. Yeah. And again, he's playing here at home too, especially against top team lines. So I'm willing to work with him, in terms of where he's at in his development. I'm waiting patiently, but at the same time, I think he tries to be safe sometimes in spots where you're right. I like the word pop.
Yeah,
he's not popping off to us when I watch the game. It's not like he's really noticeable.
Yeah. And,
he's a first-round pick. But, again, that could be sometimes, I don't want to say it, Russ. You asked me a question. Sometimes when you don't notice the defenseman, it's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
But I agree with you. I don't think that's the case here.
It's just weird. I don't know. I don't come away from these games feeling horribly negative about the guy and his performance.
Right.
But at no point, legitimately, at no point this season has he made a play or multiple plays in a game where I've said, all right, there we go. There's the guy they hoped that they were getting when they drafted him in the first round. It just, and again, maybe you don't need that. Maybe not every guy is meant to be, he doesn't have to be flashy.
Right.
But I almost view it the popping thing is almost is he impactful? And right now there's nothing that's impactful about his play.
At certain nights he does some better things. With the game like today, I didn't even notice. He was not a noticeable player on the ice today.
Yeah.
There was a lot of non-noticeable players on the ice today.
Non-noticeable. Is that the
yeah, that's a word.
Is that the title?
That is actually some word. People say you are non-noticeable.
Yeah. I'm just checking in here with Ant really quick because I think he wants to try to stream the Torts. the Torts press conference.
Okay.
But I don't know how far away he is from doing that. Let me throw one more guy to you. We saw Travis, you mentioned Farabee, that he picked up some garbage time scoring. Konechny got back on the board. There were a few wonky plays in this game. He collided early on with Scott Lawton on the ice. He ends up scoring. Still seems to be like he's kind of finding his form. He's still finding confidence. He didn't disappear in this one. Is there anything that you can take away from this game about Travis Konechny?
He's the thing with Konechny now. He's got money in the bank.
Yeah.
So like he's a guy that the coach can rely on. I don't think he had a great game today. He had a horrible turnover. I think was it the 5th goal by Anaheim. It was really bad. Where the Zegras goal where he came back in. It was like. So that was, I mean, it happens. But, yeah, again, he comes up on the score sheet, though. He's got a pair of goals, and maybe it washes out a little bit of that sour taste. But playing well doesn't mean goal scoring all the time. It means, you're doing a lot. If you can add to it with some of the good things he's done, it's great. But, he didn't have a great – you know what? Nobody had a great day today. I can't think of one guy that had an unbelievably great hockey game today from where we were the other night. And Anaheim did. Anaheim actually played well in this game. I'll give them credit. And they responded when they had to deal with adversity.
Yeah. So Ant is trying to get Ant right now is like when you try to teach a parent or a grandparent how to flip their camera. I'm 95% sure that Ant is trying to use his front-facing camera to film Torts, which is going to be hilarious. Now, I will tell you that if you're here on the Press Row Show, you will hear John Tortorella before you'll hear him on TV. And I think probably before you'll hear him on radio. So if you really want to hear what Torts has to say, which is supposed to happen here momentarily, by all means, stick around. Let's look ahead to the 2 games coming up. All right, let's see this. Raymond Supper says Tortorella is looking for leaders in the room to step up and hold other players to play up to standards. That's what coaches on winning teams do. We talked about the idea of like he might have tore the paint off the walls in the first intermission, but
I would hope he didn't do that. I mean, the teams come, for the effort that they put into the year. And listen, today was an egg, and they laid an egg today. I'm curious to see what he has to say, but I can't imagine it'll be, I think he'll be Torts today.
Yeah. Okay. I don't know if this is going to work with Anthony. We could have sent intern Andrew down with him. And Ant decided that he wanted to go with his own. Let's look ahead real quick. We're going to give Anthony another minute before we give up on him.
Yes.
Let's look ahead to the 2 games coming up. Carolina, very good team. Buffalo, you mentioned, on the come up. I'm not looking for score predictions right now. You get a couple days off. You try to wash the bad taste out of your mouth with this one. How do you think they'll react, and how do you think they may or may not rebound against Carolina on Monday?
Well, Carolina's a team, they've had a okay start, but I just know my old teammate Rod Brindamore is going to want more from them, and they're going to be looking for teams that they feel they can probably pick off as well with the amount of talent that they have. So they're going to come in here. They're going to be prepared to play a game. They're going to look at what the Flyers did in this one, and the Flyers will look at what Carolina did in their last game as well. But this is a game tomorrow where they have to be Monday, where they just got to be ready. Carolina is a good team. They've had playoff runs the last few years, and I think this is an opportunity for the Flyers to get back on the horse again. Sometimes when you lose a game, the best thing you can do is play a great game the next game. In fact, it always is. There's always the adage in sports, especially pro sports, never 2 in a row, guys. We don't ever lose 2 in a row. Yeah. And keep that attitude, and you're fine. Did we find this guy yet?
So I'm looking at what he's doing. Anthony knows that he's going to try to get the video of Tortorella. Does he sit in the front row to get the video? No. He sat in the 3rd row. And I think I just saw it. That was either Kimmelman or Marcus. I think that was Kimmelman. Just sat in front of him. And now I think he's panicking that he's going to have to hold it up and over. Listen, I love this. I think this is great because now we get to have this moment with Ant.
Somebody just shove him out, elbow him out of the way?
I think he should.
Maybe we'll
send intern Andrew down there. I think a good result against Carolina, all things considered, is you come back, you play that hard-nosed style, you try to ramp things back up. And, yeah, if you lose on Monday, but it's a 3-2 game, but you bust it, and that's you getting back on the horse, and that's you getting yourself squared away, that's not a bad result. But as we look back at where this team is now and what they've done so far, I know this will be a topic when we do the regular Snow the Goalie show this week, but we're oh, stop. Oh, no. Kyle Creeman says Pinto covered on over goals scored today as well. At least someone's happy with today's result. We're not joking about gambling. However,
I can't stop.
Do we know? Do we know? Is Morgan Frost going to be in the lineup?
He's got to go back in. You could. There's 6, 7 forwards you could take out to put him in. If you're doing it by the way it goes, by how you play.
Yeah.
So I mean, listen.
Would Forster be the guy that you'd take out? Do you do a little bit of shuffling?
No, we waited. He actually lined his cards up well now. Torts.
Yeah.
See, what happened was before is that the only guy that you were saying you could take out is Forster to put Frost in.
Yeah.
Now he's got options.
That's
so you're not
true.
going to tick one guy off anymore. You've got plenty of. You got
Here
3
we
or
go.
4
I
options.
think we got Torts.
A 2-game sample size. Are there things you think Sam can do to kind of stay sharper as he's kind of adjusting to this new
Stop
level?
right there. Don't blame Sam for this tonight. He's part of it. But it's easy to look at the goaltender and throw it all at him. Not a chance. That's a team effort tonight.
We talked to Travis Konechny. He said what frustrated him was the flat start. Is that kind of where your head's at coming after this game?
No, I don't, because I don't think we were flat. I thought we had really good energy. We whiff on one, ends up in our net. Throw the puck out of the building, they score on the power play. And the whole complexion changes. Because I thought we had a good start. I thought their goalie made 2 or 3 good saves. We give them a free one when we fan on a pass, and they score on the power play. Then we're chasing. I thought we were coming, bang. But we were just really disjointed as far as sustaining our energy.
John, Konechny was pretty hard on himself about the turnover on the, I think, 5th goal.
I remember.
It was just, you guys were shorthanded, and is that a tough play where he's trying to maybe make
Well,
something
he's trying to get to lots.
Yeah.
You know, those plays worked a few nights ago when we scored 3, right? So there was a lot, and that's what I'm saying to you. There was a lot of almost plays that didn't work tonight. A couple of plays in the power play, trying to get it to a guy, they knock it down. Things didn't work. But, you know, what Sam had to go through a little bit with the Bronx cheers out there, bullshit. That does not, the game does not fall on one guy, on the goalie. It belongs to all of us.
With Sam, he's obviously a guy who throughout his career is used to being the starter. He only got 3 games this month because of the way things played out, including the preseason game. What, I guess, does he need to do to make sure that he's at his sharpest, even if he's not playing as often as he should?
That's part of the growth for him as a young man, how you can get into a rhythm in the games when you don't play a whole bunch of them. I got a pretty good goalie in Carter Hart, who's in great shape. And Carter is our #1 guy. And I think I got one of the better goaltending coaches in the league. That's something they have to work through to try to figure out how to stay in some sort of rhythm with your practice habits to get ready. And I don't think Urs was good, but we're not blaming everything on him. But for him, he's a unique guy for me because I think he'll rebound. I think, I've said it to you guys many times, I think he's got a mental awareness and toughness. He'll bounce back. When he plays again, I don't know. But that is a learning curve for him as far as being the #2 guy. I'm not going to go here alternating goalies back and forth to get him in rhythm. I got a pretty good guy in Carter Hart. He's going to play a bulk of them, and Russ is just going to try to get himself ready for his start.
So kind of following up on the idea of a learning curve. You guys obviously have 3 goalies right now. You have Felix still here. Is this a situation where you wouldn't really even consider sending Sam down to get more regular starts because you want him to learn how to be an NHL backup and how to adjust and deal with the situation?
Because that's where he is right now. I don't see Sam supplanting Hartsey as our #1 guy. He's going to be our backup goalie. So he's got to figure it out this way. So, he struggled in Dallas a little bit, but had a really good 3rd period. I'm going to forecast. I think he's gonna bounce back. I think he has that type of mentality.
John Owen Tippett had a couple chances early. Are you happy with the chances he's getting, or would you like to see him start capitalizing a little bit more?
Well, I think Tip has been a little uneven, having the puck, losing the puck, scoring chances, but more and more he's getting more scoring chances. Hopefully more go in than they have. I think the biggest part of Tip's game is I just want to see him protect the puck more, better. I think he'll have it more. Some really good shifts tonight, some shifts that weren't good. I think he's been uneven, but he'll find his way.
There were long stretches today where you had a lot of puck possession, a lot of forecheck. Obviously, the result didn't go the way you want, but are there positives you can keep building from that area?
I like our team. I do. I like the way we're making plays. We're not going to throw things away in how we're trying to prepare these guys because we have a little bit of a struggle tonight. We're going to keep on trying to push the offense. We're not going to go into a defensive shell because we get 7 scored on us tonight. I like the way some guys are opening up the ice and taking a chance making plays. Turn some over tonight, they end up in our net. We'll turn some over in our next game because I want us to take a chance because I think our team needs to learn how to score more goals.
Last game you talked about having to face adversity a little bit, like this team, how will they respond when they face adversity? Does being aggressive like that, continually be aggressive like that, allow them maybe to respond to adversity a little bit better?
As far as
yeah.
I want us to develop that type of identity. As far as I saw us come. It was 4-0 and bang bang, we score a couple. Then you start feeling it. I tell you, a big point of that game was when it's 4-2. We scored 2. We ended up with a power play, and the power play sucked. And it deflated us a little bit.
Yeah.
What if you score a goal in that power play? And so you're kind of close in that area. But I think it's a good group. We play a pretty good team Monday. I'm not sure what happens, but I know that we'll be ready to play. And these are all things as we go the growth of this team that come your way. And this is what we have to pay attention to, how we handle situations. But I think they'll have an aggressive mindset come Monday.
Thanks, Rich. Thanks.
And we're back here on the Press Row Show. There were some interesting comments there by one John Tortorella.
Well, I think the one, and again, this guy's going to stick up for his team. And to say about Urson, that it was BS that the fans gave him the Bronx cheers. Yeah. It is. I mean, the guy's in there trying to play. He's not a guy who's been here forever. And you don't want to rattle somebody like that. Did he have a bad day? He did. Yeah. And Torts is sticking up for him, but the team didn't play great. And unfortunately, the goal hung out to dry at the end of it by just about everybody because it's always easy to blame a goalie.
Yeah. That was, I think, also the most positive I've heard him talk about Carter Hart in quite a while, and then also saying that he doesn't see Ersson supplanting Carter Hart at any point as the number one guy. You go back a year, he was much more effusive in his praise of Ersson than he was Hart, which then you started to see the numbers getting a little bit closer in terms of who was starting which games. It seems like he does believe that Hart is the guy.
Of course he does. Yeah. And that's, of course, Carter Hart has been taken care of like the number one goaltender too. Listen, things change. You can be a happy guy one day, and that doesn't mean you're going to be the same happy guy next Saturday or next Wednesday. So it's, again, there's no real reason for John early in the year to be upset. And I think he handled the press conference really well, looking out for his players, looking out for the goaltender, and saying, hey, we weren't at our best. I didn't really like the flow of the games, what I heard, and some of the rhythm to the game for the team. And it just wasn't there today. So we tried to get things going. He thought what I was thinking, too, and what we were saying, get one more, we're good here. Yeah. It just never happened. The pattern never developed to come all the way back and make it interesting. And that's just sometimes the way it goes. And the power play, as you see at the bottom there, the power play was not good tonight. It didn't. I think it may have executed, but just it never gave the power play. Sometimes you can have a bad power or a good power play, and it kind of lends to your 5-on-5 after because you had some good offensive progressions and you made some shots on net. It never happened. The power play stymied this team, and it certainly didn't give them any offensive flair at the end of it.
I'm going to go one positive thing before we sign off. We talk about the idea of money in the bank and about building up trust and equity with your coach. Tippett hasn't exactly had the quantifiable results, right? Like, he's not on the score sheet every game, but you see, despite the fact that that might be the case, and despite the fact that he's a younger player, he clearly has made a good impression on Tortorella when Tortorella kind of goes to bat for him in that press conference. And I don't know, I would think that that kind of like public showing of support from your coach, especially if you're not finding the back of the net in the way that you might want to, probably gives you a little bit of a confidence boost, for when you come out the next time.
If a goal scorer is not scoring, the puck's not going in, but you're playing the game the right way, it's be only a matter of time before that guy gets himself going again. But you can't lose the other good things in development in your game just because the puck's not going in. So you have to do other things well. I thought Tippett actually tonight was a pretty good hockey player at times. Yeah. It's a couple mistakes, but he actually made some really good plays too, and I feel like he's starting to get his game together.
All right, I think that's probably about where we want to wrap for tonight. I just, God, I keep saying tonight. It's the afternoon.
It is.
We have a whole evening ahead of us.
That's right.
Not together.
That's why I used to like afternoon games. Yeah. Back in my day, I'd get to the bar earlier. That's what I'd say.
But not anymore.
Not anymore. That's right.
And by the way, I forgot to tell you, we got an email from somebody a couple days ago who I'll show you the email. But
let's not talk about it.
It's somebody who somebody who was thankful for you helping them. I think through Bundy recovery.
Yeah, great.
Which was really nice. So
stay tuned for that. Apparently, there's a sponsorship thing coming.
Whoa!
We'll talk about it more.
Oh, okay then.
How about that?
So we will be back on Monday for the game against the Hurricanes, and we'll also be here on Wednesday for that game as well. Make sure you subscribe to Snow the Goalie wherever you get your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Pandora, Google Podcasts, wherever you get them. If it's not one of those apps, the show is still there. You can subscribe on YouTube. We ask you very nicely, please subscribe. Hit that thumbs up. It helps us. And we will be back later this week with 2 more editions of the Press Row Show, and we'll somehow, some ways, also try to figure out a way to get a regular episode of Snow the Goalie out as well. So for Bundy, find him on Twitter at Therien6. I'm Russ at Joy on Broad, and down somewhere in the bowels of this place is Anthony SanFilippo at AntSanPhilly. Big thank you to intern Andrew.
Always.
Everybody have a great weekend.
Anthony's coming.
We'll talk to you soon.